Howdy, folks. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, The Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, got a Dungeons and Dragons video. And today's video is going to have to do with the Traveling Ankylosaurus. This is actually a vendor that I created for my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Haven't really gotten to employ him yet, but I figured, yeah, I'll talk a little bit about it. Um, so, in my world that I created, I essentially have um, traveling merchants that players run into from time to time, and I have employed these a few times, and players seem to like them. That just kind of a random merchant, maybe moving around with a wagon, selling their wares and whatnot. But I wanted something a bit more unique when it comes to merchants. So I thought about a world traveling merchant that would have some kind of special mount or whatever to transport his goods. And I got thinking about the orc Squiggoth. And of course, as things roll out, I start thinking some more, and I come up with maybe I could use an Ankylosaurus. You could put a lot of stuff on his back and use him as a mount and whatnot, and haul around a lot of goods. Um, and who's really going to mess with a temperamental dinosaur that's got a giant, huge mace ball for a tail? Now, with that being said, dinosaurs are basically ingrained into Dungeons Dragons. They've been a part of Dungeons Dragons since I can remember. Maybe even as far back as early editions. Um, and in my world, dinosaurs are kind of mostly relegated to kind of like this little dinosaur island that I have. Think of like a monster island from Godzilla. And it just works out perfectly because, like I said, dinosaurs have pretty much been ingrained into Dungeons and Dragons since the birth of the game, as far as I'm aware of. I know every edition of the advanced Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, 4th edition, 5th edition, so on, has had dinosaurs in it. The only one I'm not exactly sure of is the like original edition, but it does look like dinosaurs were even part of the original edition of Dungeons and Dragons, or at least so it would seem with some research that I've done. So the idea was kind of coming together, shaping and whatnot. Now, before I dig into it any deeper, I want to really quickly plug my YouTube channel because I could definitely use everyone's help. Likes, comments, subscriptions, all that stuff helps me out. It kind of bumps me up in the YouTube algorithm, and it recommends my channel to other people. Another thing that you can do too to provide additional support to the channel is I have a Patreon page. You can go in the video description, take a look, and I have a Patreon page there. Check it out, and maybe throw some additional support on the Patreon page. But moving on. Now, interestingly enough, when doing this video, it seems like I'm not as sharp as I thought it was, because when I did this video, or started putting this video together, I came across these images, and it seems like some company has actually already come up with some type of traveling merchant Ankylosaurus. So, yeah, to my chagrin, thought I had something really cool, interesting, original, and it seems like someone beat me to the punch. You know how that goes. But I still needed to design the merchant himself. So I started thinking what would be interesting and exotic. Um, and because most of the time I kind of do the typical medieval European setting, I thought about someone hailing from the Shang Empire in my Dungeons and Dragons world. And essentially, in my Dungeons and Dragons world, it's the Mongol, Chinese, if you will, empire. So it kind of works out that I have essentially a Chinese merchant that travels around on this giant ankylosaurus. So Delgor Yang is born, if you will. And essentially, the big thing he deals with is exotic items and wondrous items and things of that nature. Although he deals with some basic stuff such as swords and ropes and whatnot. So that's kind of how this was put together as a traveling vendor. That's pretty much unique because he's going to be the only vendor in my world like that. We're using some kind of extraordinary beast of burden, and he's going to be seen in just about any setting within my world at one point or another. I still haven't gotten around to explaining how he travels from place to place, or at least from continent to continent, but that's my secret. The players don't need to know that. Either ways, I thought it was all interesting, and I thought I would share it. Now, of course, it may not be as interesting as the most interesting man in the world, but it's still pretty interesting. I felt so anyway. But anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up today's video at that. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful day.